Welcome to Wild by Zones, a podcast about reviewing every zone in popular MMO World of Warcraft. I'm Mary.
I think I'm Torin. That's my name, right? I believe so. Yeah.
I am 100% sure that I am Eowyn, Slayer of the Nazgul.
No, I think I don't think the second part is you. I don't think you'll kill any Nazgul. Not
That's
yet.
what you think. Hey, you haven't seen what I've done since I went to college.
We've seen some of it. I don't think any of it was slaying Nazgul. I think you just play Horn.
Shush.
I was like, you told me to go to your concert. How would I do that if you were slaying Nazgul?
What? Maybe it's a concert where I slay more Nazguls. You don't know.
That's ridiculous. Why would Nazgul attack a concert? They don't have ears.
This is a podcast, I think, right? What do we do with this podcast again, guys?
Why don't you know anything that's going on right now?
I'm just confused and lost.
This is the podcast where we review every zone in World of Warcraft. Today, we are looking at Thunder Bluff. We're looking at Mulgore.
Yes,
World of Warcraft.
Hey, you have
up immediately. Good to know.
You have to say the title of the podcast.
I did. Did I not say Wild by Zones?
You never did, and this is like
wait,
I am sure I said Wild by Zones at the start.
I thought we were reviewing StarCraft.
Anyway,
I gotta go.
Wild by Zones, the World of Warcraft podcast, where we would like to be wowed by the zones and not zoned by wow.
Ahem.
Anyway,
we're talking about Mulgore today.
It's incredible. Mulgore, land of large cow people.
Yes, not minotaurs. That's too specifically Greek. These are tauren.
Yes, they're
not
specifically Native American.
Not tauren. They're tauren.
They're like less sexy minotaurs who are definitely Native Americans.
They're pretty sexy. I think you really don't understand.
Well, maybe I'm just not a furry.
Bane Bloodhoof has a very nice voice, to be fair.
Okay. He's no troll, but...
He's no Vol'jin.
Trolls are definitely not as hot as Torin.
Trolls are way hotter. You don't understand.
This is the silliest conversation I think we've had.
I like their bad posture. It's hot.
You can have little flowers in your hair when you play as Torin. That's better.
Is it?
Anyway,
is it
okay, so Mulgore. We'll start with classic Mulgore, as is our wont. You begin in the Red Cloud Mesa, the best starting zone, the best 1 to 5 starting zone in classic WoW.
It's so good. I love it.
It's far.
Close. So far, that's true. We haven't seen Shadowglen or Death Knell yet. That is true.
The experience of it's very much like a. The other zones had some level of there's something wrong going on in the fifth, which that sort of exists here with the Quillboar, the pig people you have to kill with Blight in the Mind. But most of it feels like you are a young. I mean, I guess this is true of Durotar as well, but you're a young, promising. I wouldn't even say soldier, just like member of your tribe, and you're like, let's integrate you into this world. Let's get you to pass these trials. Let's do these hunts. And it's like very slow moving and expressive and just really, really nice. I really like how they took this very it's very in a way stereotypical, you have to kill some animals and stuff like that, but it really is a fantastic job of integrating that experience with you are here helping your tribe, or you're here exist in this world. I remember one of the early quests is you go and help out an old grandma who's has trouble carrying the water back from the well, and so you just carry it for her. It's just very nice and communal, and I really enjoy that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's very good at establishing what kind of people the Tauren are. Because I think by far, at least of the ones we've discussed so far, they're presented as very good, very caring, environmentalist, just a good, nice society that the people are kind to each other within, Whereas everyone else, like the orcs, the humans, they rely on each other and they work together, but it's more out of a sense of, there's danger around, so we better stay together, rather than I love the people around me, these are my family.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree, and you feel that there, because when you bring the old bring the old woman's water back, it's notable, you've done a good turn, and here's a good turn I can do you, and to help you on the next little trial. And the framing device for both Red Cloud Mesa and the rest of the zone is that you're doing little trials that effectively prove that you're an adult. Is the way I get the impression of you were.
Yeah.
You were someone who was just you were so. I do really like how like the Torin starting zone gives a nice impression on who you are. It's the same thing I really liked about Valley of Trials, but for Mulgore it's spread throughout the whole zone instead of just the starting. It's just the starting bit, where you're a young warrior undergoing the trials it takes to become an adult, and and that's cool. It makes you feel integrated into this like world. It makes you feel integrated into this society more than a lot of the other zones make you feel immersed in, and it's good.
And even beyond the immersion of like just the there's this like the classic fantasy writing though in like a really like well done way where they talk about honor and the trials and the generally what you need to do to as you're coming of age as you're coming to this world and trying to like learn about reciprocity and the like. But then on top of that, you get something like there's the quest I mentioned earlier where you help out the old grandma like carry the water like pitcher. She basically makes a comment like I was gonna get there eventually. I'm a little slow, but I'm getting there. And it's these little like cute like personal moments I think a lot of the tauren share. And they talk about more going forward, but there's just a lot of these little stories, little like moments of characterization, which I think is actually something sorely lacking in a lot of classic WoW, is that a lot of the characters feel more like they're trying to be like objects in the world rather than like people in a world. And I think this Tauren Zone did a really, really great job of like expressing that in a way that a few places that like for example the in Eowyn Forest you have the quest with the young
farmers.
Lovers.
That's
farmers
so
and lovers,
sweet.
which definitely did sort of feel that way. And then like the the little quest you give the kobold like necklace back to the woman she cries about her lost husband and that sort of thing. There are a few things like that, but I think there's a pretty rare where that's the exception. Where in Mulgore it's the rule.
I think that's one of the reasons, like this is talking way in the future, but that's one of the reasons people like Wrath of the Lich quest so much is because there's so much of this characterization that didn't really exist within early WoW.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think modern WoW, in a lot of ways, you could say an argument against modern WoW is that it goes too far the other direction. It makes it all about these individual characters, and you lose a lot of the cultural cohesiveness that early WoW, I think, was excelled at, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think they're doing that better, though.
Sure. Yes, I agree. But I'm just talking more in generalities here.
Sure.
I think Mulgore does a fantastic job of just taking both those things and express them in a really just elegant way.
Yeah, I do think we should probably mention, just because it is in Red Cloud Mesa, and like there's one part of the zone in Red Cloud Mesa that's very different from the rest of it. It's very different from the whole rest of the zone. And there's one place where the Barons are encroaching upon Mulgore, and a bunch of Quillbore have like set up a camp there. And it's very interesting when you go into the little cave in the mountains and emerge from the vast like rolling grasslands of Mulgore into this little like Quillbore enclave, and it's barren, it's dusty. There are these hideous, thorny, massive vines, like sprouting from the earth as if they're like choking out the very life of the land inside of it. And like the only wildlife there is the war beasts brought by the Quillbore. And I'm like, that's cool. That is a nice like visual sense of like encroachment and defilement.
Yeah.
That I think provides a really nice contrast and a really nice place to like build the danger a bit as you like get into like the last bit of the starting zone.
And related to that, I think like that relates to a big theme of the zone, which is like against your learning of reciprocity, your learning of coming of age, you're proving these sorts of ideas. You're in relationship to the land and becoming just one with those sorts of things. There is a very strong sort of like all the enemies in the land. They're the people that you have to deal with are people who are harming it, who like seem like they want to strip it of the resources and take it away. I mean, obviously it's trying to evoke like American style like colonization of like the Great Plains in America and like the sort of like resistance to that.
Right.
In a way, there's definitely that quality to it. But I think there's a really good job of that having that resistance, that kind of resistance makes it clear why the Tauren care so much about this level of replenishment and like farming, like be living in like in a good relationship to the land. And yeah, I also wanted to mention about that Quillbore. There's actually a few drawings on the walls of like the caves in the Quillbore area. And they're like drawings of harpies and other sorts of things. I thought it was really interesting, kind of seeing these weird, almost like it felt like pseudo-religious sort of like gesturing from these Quilboar who we can't communicate with because they don't seem to speak any of the languages of the people. And I just thought that was just really nice detail. Just feel like, oh wow, these people like have some ideas. They have some beliefs about the world. They care. They have something, but that's leading them to destroying it. Versus the Tauren, has a similar sort of quote unquote tribal like belief of the world that's leading them to a preservation.
It's very interesting. I definitely like the whole like Torin Quilboar thing, and I almost wish there was more of it in the zone because Quilboar only show up one other time rest of the zone. You're the rest, and I kind of get why they wanted to like make this one like a very slow rolling zone, and you had to deal with like various stuff like gnolls, like some dwarves that are set up like an archaeology dig. There's a nice little like setup
company, and
yes, the venture company, a bunch of evil capitalist goblins.
As we remember from our last episode, goblins are they're evil and they only care about themselves and money. Disgusting little creatures.
That's correct.
Very funny how they become playable later on. But
remember, kids, racism is okay if it's towards goblins.
True. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's very funny. It's almost funny just how much like the early characterization, like stuff introduced into goblins, is just like, hey, these guys have no redeeming qualities at all. There's not even.
I think it's funny that the nasty little creature thing was added in Cataclysm, which is when the goblins got their starting.
That's true.
So it's even funnier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall there's a lot of good to say about this, and a lot I like about it. However,
I mean, I wouldn't get to there yet. We haven't barely started talking about it.
That's fair. That's fair. I think we've mostly gotten through like vanilla Red Cloud Mesa. It's a fairly simple thing, but it's very warm and it's very good, and it has that nice contrast at the end with the Quilboar, and then it opens up to the larger Mulgore.
I want to make a quick note about the walk to Bloodhoof Village, which is the main village of Mulgore, which you would go to from Red Cloud Mesa, is like you walk down this road and you see these vast green areas, and then like just over like the mountains you see the sun sort of peeking in these really beautiful rays. I just thought it was an absolutely fantastic image. Like it just worked so well as your introduction into the wider world.
I agree. It's the same thing that I really liked about it's almost the same kind of the inverse of what I really liked about the trudge up from Coldridge Valley to Keranos in Dunmorrow all the way back when. We just trudging through the snow and experiencing the cold, harsh land there before coming to the warm village of Keranos. It's a very different vibe, obviously, here than there, but it's the same sort of just like you have a time to just take in the world, and I really like that.
Yeah, and I think also especially uses the limited sort of assets of old WoW, where it's like using these like, these very like harsh polygons and like simplistic shapes in the light, and then like the very unrefined lighting technique to then still express something that was, I thought, pretty breathtaking in the moment. I think it's especially helped by the fact that Mulgore is just so green. Like I don't think there's any green grassland in the rest of Azeroth, at least in the classic, that is nearly this like lush and green and beautiful. All other like large scale like rolling areas like this are almost like deserts or dry or Red Ridge is so dry.
Red Ridge is very red.
Yeah,
it's got lots of rocky textures.
Yeah, it's all clay and like.
And then Westfall is greener than Stone Talon. Yellow.
It's greener than Stone Talon. There is that, but
Stone Talon's also not a plain.
Yeah, I think more like Deathless or the Barrens or all
or
these
Westfall.
Places. Yeah, but
you're right.
It's just really unique in this way, and I think I think that's related to the themes of the zone, the feeling of the Tauren. So it really matters to them to have a place like that where they can just sort of roam free and be happy and like just sort of live a life like kind of undisturbed by the rest of the world. This is actually related to we didn't mention this at the beginning, but the opening sort of cinematic that you get is by far the least xenophobic of all the opening cinematics we've gotten of all the characters so far. Everyone else is like, there's something. Oh, we are the Alliance, or we are the Horde. Or we have to kill all the enemies, or we need to like carve out our new lifeblood, or something like that. Where here it was just like, well, we had allied with the orcs. We worked on. We found a new homeland, and now we're just sort of want to carve something else for us.
Not entirely. It does specifically mention the common hatred for their sworn enemy, the marauding centaur. So there is that there. There is still some.
So, but I think partially the reason for the different attitude of the Tauren is these are the only people that have recently resettled in a new place. Like the Tauren are recent immigrants to this new homeland of theirs, and the reason for they were driven out by the centaur, which is why. But I think their different attitude has to do with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They found their way home and have actually settled down.
I feel like you're much less likely to be xenophobic about the people around you if you're the new person in town.
Yeah, and we'll find out more about centaurs later. Mostly in Desolus is the main area that focuses on the centaur, and centaur actually do have a similar sort of relationship to the land that the Tauren do, which I think
they really do, which is very interesting.
They drove the Tauren out during Warcraft 3.
Yeah. I don't know how I never made that connection before. Like, they both honor an Earth Mother. That they literally they do this. That's kind of cool. Well, that is that. But that is that. Throughout the course, so yeah, you come to Bloodhoof Village, the main hub of the zone, which is where almost all of your quests are going to be from this place. It's a big, sprawling, and it's the most sprawling of all of the towns that I think we've experienced here, and it's just like there's a lot in it. That's because most of the zone is here.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue this is probably the worst designed physical second big hub area we've encountered so far. It's just sort of some huts and tents.
It's also really easy to miss quests within it. You have to run around it 3 times to find all of them.
Not very well designed.
I get why they place stuff this far apart. It's just to just fit with the vibe of what the zone is, and you're supposed to be traveling a lot, but it's too easy to get lost in this place. And this runs into the bigger problem with Mulgore. Mulgore's environment is the least detailed of the starting zones that we've done so far, unfortunately. There's a lot of beautiful plain, but there's not that much else outside of 3 areas. Even the Dwarven Mine is just not. It has barely gotten off the ground and is not that different from the rest of the zone. And
sorry, what were you saying?
This is, I think, where I first. Okay, so it is a well-known thing that Kalimdor was developed after Eastern Kingdoms, and a lot of that development was rushed. And I think I feel it in Mulgore a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in design of the actual Bloodhoof Village, there's very little detail. There's some cow people sitting around. There are a couple of huts. The inn is just you walk in and there's just sort of wood. It's you don't have nearly the kind of loving detail that's put into Goldshire or Keranos, or even Razor Hill is this issue a little bit, but Razor Hill I feel works because of the kind of martial nature of the horde of the orcs, but Torin don't have also the Torin are the people you would expect to be build up a really beautiful set of objects and ideas and things they cared about that bring up, because they're the kind of people who are really obsessed with memory and thinking of the past and the experience of living and having the trophies quote unquote based off of that. And even a few Kodo Kodo are these giant mammal creatures, sort of similar to bison, but way bigger and kind of more leathery. And they're
that's probably why they built that connection with the Torin that did not exist in Warcraft 3. The Kodo were actually orc beasts of burden in Warcraft 3, and they were pretty much changed.
They aren't.
Aren't the Kodo beasts ridden
3,
by orcs?
No, the Warcraft 3 Kodos are specifically you meet them because they're the beasts of burden that turns you is in their caravan to travel. You only you get access to Kodos once you bring the Cairn, Bloodhoof, and the rest of the Torin into the Horde.
You're right. You are right. I'm sorry. I think I was remembering wrong because I remember that the Kodo Beast was an orc unit. There is an orc on its back doing war drum stuff. But you're right.
That's not even true though. It's a Torin.
No, it's not. It is absolutely an orc. Look this. I can literally link you the model right now. There is an orc playing more drums on top of the Kodo.
That's so weird because it literally is a tauren thing.
But yes,
I think the idea there was that they wanted to like represent it as like the tauren being into the tauren and their ways being integrated, the tauren and their like sort of thing they have going on being integrated into the more militaristic orcs of the horde as they two of peoples like bind together, which is a large part of the plot line of the orc.
Hey, don't forget the trolls are also there.
Yes, the trolls are also there. They are.
Can't forget about the sexy trolls.
Speaking to the integration of the tauren into the horde, I do want to mention the dwarves more in depth because you briefly mentioned them, Mary, but I think it's interesting that we have a specific horde alliance enemy in this zone, which I think it's probably the only such thing in any of the starting zones where you have
Durotar.
Durotar.
The Colonialism humans in Durotar.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. You're right.
It's like a very memorable part of the zone.
It's like my favorite part of the zone.
Colonialism's like they don't register for me as like the same as Stormwind humans though for some reason.
Fair enough.
That's on you. That's your own issues with the cult. Actually, the Coltierans intentionally
kind of,
separated themselves.
They function sort of separately. Like they're not really like sanctioned by the alliance. Their actual like invasion. It's very much like an order from the Proudmoors. But
well, from the admiral who's dead.
Yes. But what I mean is here is these dwarves basically function like the dwarves in
Dunmorrow?
Dunmorrow, yes. They're the specifically they're archaeologists. Yeah, they're specifically interested in like delving into an old area, digging into the land, breaking it down, finding the past, the history. They're very interested in history in a very different way than the Tauren are. I think this contrast is being made on purpose between the dwarves sort of like more industrialized interest in history is something that's like we can strip down, we can find the origin of that type of thing, versus Torin, who history is more an oral tradition. It's more a thing that you tell your children. You have hunting stories, that sort of the thing. And I think this level of trying to integrate this, you fight them because you don't like how they're delving into land. They're not being respectful to this thing that the Tauren need to survive. They need to establish themselves. You need to like bring their livelihood from this land, and they have to drive the dwarves up for that reason. And I think that speaks to the ways in which the Horde is trying to be established in a way as a group sort of. They're like in a way is a pre-industrial group. Like I think a lot of times the Horde kind of sees, they're the bad guys, or the Alliance are the good guys in a lot of ways because the Horde are savage and mean, and they beat up our
not as pretty
humans. Yeah, but I think here there's definitely an attempt to trying to start to build ideas of the Horde as a group that's more preserving and more interested in those sorts of ideas. But of course, that gets broken down when you see the fight between the orcs and the night elves in Ashenvale. But I think that's also intentional, right? The way that orcs sort of both accept the shamanistic way of living that they've pulled from the trolls and from the Tauren, but they also have this like there's this level of like that demon blood, that like desire for like conquest and violence that like sort of push the orcs and always are constantly making the orcs like an uncomfortable relationship with the rest of the Horde. Wow. And I
think it's also the fact that like the Tauren are native to Azeroth and the orcs are just not.
And also native to Kalimdor specifically.
Yeah,
I should note, which the Darkspear, which not even the Darkspear are necessarily. They're from the Echo Islands, which are kind of part of Kalimdor, but they weren't treated as it in original Warcraft 3.
Like the Night Elves are literally the natives who got invaded by the orcs. Like, like straight up. Yeah, there's a lot of. I feel like there's a lot of colonialist theming in Kalimdor, whereas. Like, usually the good guy is presented as the natives and the bad guy is the colonialist force.
Which, to be fair, is a lot of what's happening in this zone.
Yes.
You are playing the good guys, the good guy natives in their home and dealing with exploitative jerks and invasive incursions from a conquering tribe, and also the exploitative capitalist and such.
Yeah. Also, one more note on the dwarves is in the place where you find the dwarves, there's 2 books you can read that basically give you a brief history of the dwarves and what they're about, which I thought was really nice, like environment design for the player, because it's like assuming these people have never encountered dwarves before. Here you go. This is what they're about, which I thought was really nice.
And in both, like, you read them, they actually talk about like the ways in which dwarves have like very much, but both of the ways in which they're sort of had to deal with like the invading horde when the orcs originally came with the dark portal, and the tensions there, but also like the levels of like obsessive delving deep, which is like they've learned a lot about the world. The dwarves are probably the ones who've brought the most knowledge about titans and the gods of this world. The titans are basically
which makes sense since they're literally the most connected to the titans.
But also in delving too deep, they've started to bring like some level of ruin and some level of destruction around them, which we'll see a lot later in like the Blasted Lands and the like.
Yep.
And
the
dwarves pretty.
Dude, the Blasted Lands was the demons that did that. Not
Really? Oh, I thought.
dwarves.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of a different.
No, you're thinking of the. No, not the Blasted Lands. You're thinking of the other one, the
Badlands.
The Badlands,
Yes,
the
yes.
Badlands.
The whole strip mined place.
And then also like Searing Gorge, of course, as well.
Yes.
Well, that's more dark iron stuff.
Yes,
but
dark iron are
dark-
different culturally from the.
Well, except that they're more connected to Ragnaros and
Yeah, but like there's
and the elemental threat rather than the Titans. But
there is something interesting to be said about the fact that the dwarves and both the dwarves of Bronzebeard and the dwarves of the Dark Iron Clan engage in very similar things. Like they're both engaging in like in like colonialist stuff. They're both like they both have some vague colonialism stuff going on. They both like appreciate the same things in life. They're different in some ways, but like they're very similar in other very important ways.
Agreed, and I think that's kind of being this. It's really important here because we see those that dwarf tendency, that desire to like dig deep and like not care about the integrity of the world if it means the confines of history, some like meaning some reaching to the past, is like one of the many ways in which the land can be destroyed. That then there's capitalism.
And it also, this is just another thing about the dwarves, like that seek of destruction and caring only about like their own goals is very directly connected to how the Titans treated Azeroth, which I think is really cool.
Agreed, especially when we find out, later that the dwarves are descended from the earth and who were created by the Titans in the first place.
Yep.
They're
Spoilers.
basically direct descendants.
We haven't gotten to there yet, but yes.
Yes.
It's very cool.
But I think that really like starting to plant the seeds of that there in one of the 3 ways in which we see the world. This area being destroyed, it's destroyed by that, it's destroyed by capitalism, and it's destroyed by the Quillbore and their like desire to just like. It's hard to express what the Quillbore want. The Quillbore are just really kind of inaccessible in a way, but their desire to corrupt and tear down and make sense of it, like that kind of vague ways.
And and like terraform the land to make it theirs.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of the wish to conquer, to take, the wish to exploit, and then the wish to delve deep. Those 3 things becoming the 3 sort of ideas which can in themselves not be necessarily like bad things. If we could use them in later zones, we'll be the characters who are doing all of those 3 things in various ways. But seeing how those things as ideas push against those more simplistic in a way, but really just more lively, more built around reciprocity and just like a wish for a peaceful, like happy, comfortable life. And I think it's pretty interesting how we contrast those things.
It is worth noting that though these threats are definitely like concerns in the zone, they're not the main thing. They're not the main thing about the zone you're doing. Like the final thing you do in the zone, the final thing you do to become an adult and be like sent off into the and be ready to like leave into the wider world, you hunt down a Kodo. You hunt down and kill a big Kodo and prove your mettle to the chief, Karen Bloodhoof.
Because that's what's most important to the Tauren, their way of life, not these invaders who are messing it up. What's most important to them is keeping the way of life. Like in some ways, this like I feel like it's one of the great American shames like Americans have growing up, when you learn about how Native Americans were treated and the way we completely fucked up their culture and killed most of them. Like there's always this kind of wish to go back, like as a little kid, like being like, damn, the Native Americans, the way we talk about Native Americans and their way of like so naturalistic and one with like the environment and using everything. It's like we always wanted. It's like I want these guys to succeed and have their thing happen for them, and I feel like this zone is very much expressing that.
Now, to be fair, that is also it is also using the same very like simplistic and sometimes otherling look at that a lot of white people writing about Native Americans do.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
It is that simplistic. It's that simplistic, like most basic childish understanding of Native Americans and the wish for them to have things have turned out well for them rather than how they did in history.
Yeah, there's definitely some noble savage coding going on with the Torin that is a little like it's a little uncomfortable looking at it with like modern sensibilities, but I don't think it was like from the perspective of this was made in 2005 that I can like condemn it too much.
Yeah, I definitely get that. There's that noble savage thing, and I think it sort of works because we are not presenting this noble savage as just against like if it was just like the alliance, the only thing that the issue that'd be one thing. But the fact is, we take a multifaceted look at the ways in which these different like disasters can happen, and we say, okay, well, those things happen, and those are like can be like dangerous like ideas. But as long as you hold to a belief, I don't know. I think maybe you could have a more nuanced view if we kind of look at the ways that different Tauren actually did give in to Quilboar or capitalism or whatever else. You might be able to get a more convincing idea.
Classic WoW quests are way too simple for that, though.
Some of them are, but not all of them.
I think Duratar and Domoro actually go into like some of these similar themings in really interesting ways, but
they do.
But I perhaps, but I honestly just don't care about that for this zone because I think this zone does its specific aesthetic idea so well that I'm not like, oh, it should have done this other thing instead.
It does. There is a thing it definitely should have done though. Had less quests where you go out and hunt animals for an interminable amount of time and have to get 20 bear asses or whatever. There's too many of them.
There's a lot. It's more than 3/4 of the quests in the zone.
And it kind of makes this pacing of the zone in the original. This is, I think, the worst thing about the zone. The pacing of classic WoW Mulgore, once you leave Red Cloud Mesa, is bad. The quests are incredibly slow and sluggish, which is a problem for a starting zone. Mulgore itself is huge, and you have to like travel all over it, with the only quest hub being Bloodhoof Village, which also is annoying to traverse and such. They're all collect quests, so they're going to be more random than a kill quest, and just it really drags down what is otherwise a quite good experience with this just major glaring flaw that is just present through the whole zone and makes the whole thing drag in a way that I am a little unhappy with.
And I actually think that this just ties into the issue we just talked about with the whole noble savage thing. Is because of this certain quest design, you become most of the zone is not you going and dealing with the interesting threats of the dwarves or the Venture Company or the Quilboar, which in a lot of ways you need to have the contrast between the more sort of culturally dictated like daily life sort of experience of the Tauren. But if that becomes everything, like that becomes 95% of your action in the zone, just going around and killing animals. And that, I think, takes their whole experience and simplifies it. It makes me feel like I'm lacking more focus, more exploration of the ways in which the Tauren have to resist and make sense of these different threats to their livelihood, because the livelihood itself becomes so monotonous and all-consuming, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Also, just the functionality of the zone, and because of how drop rates work, you're literally going to look across these grasslands and see like 50 corpses of animals you killed, which is like, isn't this exactly the opposite of what those quest givers told me we wanted? Which seems kind of bad.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and I know that this is describing it as one problem in a zone of like this large would normally not drag it down this far.
It's such a big problem.
It's such a big problem.
It's huge.
It drags down what a zone that should be like as good as Duratar and it's just not.
Like
Yeah.
even Torin, who loves Torin's always talking about like how they don't mind pacing of classic WoW zones. They literally told us they were like, "Oh yeah, I never really finished Mulgore because of this reason," and despite the fact that they really liked the zone.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because, man, okay, I think here's the thing that frustrates me the most about Mulgore here, and that's so we talked about a little bit about the capitalists, the venture company. These people are basically just like doing shitty stuff. They're mining, they're poisoning the wells. They're just being just real
Nasty little creatures.
Yes, these goblins. But they have this giant, really complex, actually like one of the most complex caves in like all of classic WoW. Maybe like up there, just below like what do you call it? What's the one?
Blackrock Depths.
Not Blackrock Depths.
No, not the. Those are way more complicated. The dungeon.
Yeah, sorry. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I was gonna say like Maradon, but
Oh yeah, like the cave structure outside Maradon, or the cave structure outside Dead Mines is another example there.
Yeah, but this one
that's a good one.
This one is more than Dead Mines, but it's so complex. But there are exactly 3 types of enemy. There's foremen, there are miners, and then there's like the boss guy you have to kill. And it's like there's so much there, and it could go so deep. And you just basically do the quest. You walk in, you kill the foreman, who's some reason sitting near the entrance, and then you walk out. You're like, so
why was this here?
This huge mining operation, which should be like one of the most important parts of the zone, because these are the actual people who are doing the most harm to the land of these venture companies. They're the ones who poison the wells, that sort of thing. And this is their headquarters. I think the reason they are here in Mulgore is for this operation. But we don't get very much detail about what their operation is about, what they're doing, what kind of resources they have. We have no interaction with them outside of, we pop them, we kill a couple of them, and leave.
And it also feels like the venture company are the most malicious force acting within Mulgore.
Yeah, I think I'm
just because like the dwarves have you read their books, like there's some background on them. They're not seen as like these aren't evil people. They're just people who are my enemy. And say the Quillbores are a little more than the dwarves, but I'd say less than the venture company.
And Quillbore definitely have their own ethical sort of framework that we just don't understand. So we're kind of just like
it's more like an alien force.
And in fairness, the orcs have absolutely done a colonialism on the Quillbore.
Yes.
Like that has just objectively has happened. It is why the Quillbore are expanding like so much into Mulgore, is because they have been displaced from their lands by the orcs in Durotar. Like I think that's the idea there, is that like the orcs helped with the Torin to reclaim their land, but they've also displaced the Quillbore, who are of their own like cultural things, and has caused them to like go into some of them to go to a very dark place, which is kind of cool. A kind of cool idea that I kind of wish we got more storytelling about. But the implicit stuff is what's there is very interesting.
Yeah,
the venture company doesn't have any of that. They're just asshole capitalists who want to strip mine the land and get a bunch of gold.
If we move 2 hours of my like 7 hours I spent killing animals indiscriminately and move those to the venture company, Mulgore would be an incredible zone. I think honestly, like
yeah.
As it is, it's only an okay to good zone, which is unfortunate. I don't think there's much more I can really talk about for Classic Mulgore. Is there anything else we want to talk about there?
I do want to mention there was one really beautiful story told by a tauren, an old tauren. We talked about him, a wolf companion.
Ooh,
who he sort of like fought through many wars with, and like was involved with the demon wars of, I don't know when that was exactly. Was that in the third war with the demon war? Or
it was the third war.
Third war has demons.
In the third war, with the demons, and like there's this whole like the wolf.
Also, the third war is the one that had Torin in it, because
the
first two wars were not in Kalimdor.
Yes, but like there's this wolf who's just like he was his dear friend and companion, and like helped him out, and just like he'd bonded with him, and just gave all his life to him. And he was like kind of his best friend, and the fact that he fought the longest time against these demons, but eventually like these wars corrupted and destroyed the wolf, and he had to and eventually put him down. And like this story just felt really intense and sad. It was like, yeah, it's like it doesn't really matter. Like this kind of dream of the Tauren to have this uninterrupted, like undisturbed lifestyle where they just build up their relationships, they live their life, they have their whole communism shit, is impossible. Because there always will be demons, there always will be Quillbore, there'll always be venture capitalists, right? And they're sort of stuck in this endless cycle where it's like it's a thing they have to fight to have. Like you do their things where they kill 10 trillion wolves for no reason. You need to
need so many wolf paws. Holy shit.
You need to like fight against that. It's because it's a constant resisting threat, and that kind of destabilizes the whole idea of like us thinking of these people as these eternal people. These like, oh, they're the noble savages who lived in the same way forever until civilization kicked them out. It's like, no, civilization or modernism or industry, all these sorts of things, colonialization, are active, constant processes that always happen and always will happen, and are things that the Tauren are like consistently dealing with and reacting against and building a society in relationship to. And I think this little story about the wolf like expresses that in a way I found really compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Torin are actually like really, really cool, and it's just I wish this zone was better. Which is why, guys, Cataclysm did it. They improved the zone.
Yeah,
Yay!
I was
Holy shit.
Good job, Cataclysm.
Finally.
Finally.
Man, let's just go through this. Dunmorrow we have argued about it. I think it's a side grade. Torin thinks it's a huge downgrade. Durotar was a slight downgrade for the orcs, though. It's probably a side grade or maybe even an upgrade if you're playing a troll specifically.
It's definitely an upgrade as a troll if you care about troll lore and you want to know how the trolls are actually connected to the horde.
Yeah, I think that's
Plus,
that's an upgrade if you're
hanging out with Vol'jin is cool. Like,
yeah,
it's definitely an upgrade for the trolls.
That's fair. And Elwyn Forest somehow went from already the worst of the starting zones to just an incoherent, awful sludge. So that's three. That's two arguables and one just garbage nonsense. And so it is finally happy to see Cataclysm Mulgore is really good. It fixes almost every problem I have with classic Mulgore.
First, we should go over the changes, and that's Red Cloud Mesa is extremely changed.
It's yes. Completely different.
It's actually a sequel to Red Cloud Mesa, in a really like striking way. That old grandma we talked about, yeah, she died.
The Quillbore killed her.
She was killed by a Quillbore.
We actually finish our opening narration, and we pop up, we zone into the zone, and we just see a funeral sort of procession around us. They're getting her body ready to be burnt. And it's just like, wow, like that little woman who like give you the sass about carrying her water, like she's now dead. And I'm like, it's just kind of sad. And you turn around and immediately they're like, oh, we can't give you your normal trial of strength where you just like fight animals and stuff that's we used to, because there are Quillbores here, and your trial of strength now is to go out there and fight them, because that's all we can do now. And I was like, man.
And yeah.
It was so expressive and so effective, and the way that they take these Quillbores, which are kind of like vaguely hints about their like weird sort of wish to like dominate the land and terraform the like before. But we don't really. I feel like the quests don't really strongly express that, but here it's so strong.
Yeah. You turn around, and it is a scar. Where beforehand you had like the Quillbore stuff choking out the land as like an implicit thing going on. It moved this to explicit by like pushing it into the main part of the zone, and you see the desolation wrought by the Quillbore's magics. You see the ground turn. You see previously grass ground turn black and inhospitable as these thorns spiral through the zone. You see the Quillbore slaughtering. You see the Quillbore slaughtering and killing other Tauren in this like fight here, and it's so cool. It is such a like good starting villain antagonist for this zone that I really, really enjoyed. They're doing some and they give you some like really fucked up shit too. Like they literally have a thing like speaking on like the Tauren's like importance on like respecting the land and respecting the other creatures that have within it. You are immediately thrown into contrast with that. With the Quillbore's beasts of battle, with armor hammered and nailed onto, and explicitly tortured into an incoherent rage that then may be used as weapons against the Torin. And I'm like, that's cool. That is an interesting way to do that.
Yeah, they describe it as like they're being explicitly fed meat, to drive them into blood frenzies. It's really horrifying.
Yeah, and then the final quest of the Red Cloud Mesa is that you go in and say, okay, here's the person, take out this person who's the one who killed the old grandma, and you
Yep.
walk up to his place, and he's like these two Thorn guards, he's like uniquely named guards standing in front of his like weird like hideout, which is just like this like almost like a throne like structure like around him of like thorns, and like he stands in the middle covered with dead like tauren bodies everywhere, hunks of meat and just blood. He just
that are on fire.
It is such a shame that he's just a generic quest enemy, because that should have been like an actual boss fight.
Yeah,
but it still works for like the environmental storytelling bit, and it wasn't as bad when. And again, part of it is that we're playing current WoW, where like low level content is extremely poorly balanced.
Yeah, it's just too easy. But yeah, it was still like emotionally worked really well, and I was like, I love this. And just coming back at the end of there and just being like, well, I wish you could have had like scenes less of a violent world. I wish you could have had our more traditional ways of living, but like we can't really do that here. Like this is what you have. Your trial of strength is harder and more violent and more horrible, and you have to see the violence of the world before you really should. But that's just how it is. And I don't know. It was so good. I love it, especially just an expression of the cataclysm, what it does to the world, and of course, as a relationship to what these different people, these different like invading colonial forces did to the Tauren, the first version of the zone, the classic version of the zone. This is like a really expressive, intense sort of manifestation of those little mutterings from the past. And I love that.
I also think it's really nice, like for me, I'd never played through either the Red Cloud Mesa or Mulgore, like either classic or Cataclysm zones before. And I've played through like most of WoW's quests, like basically all of them. But I've encountered the Quillbore several times, and every single time I either forgot why they were there or the quest just didn't tell me. And so I never really understood what was going on with them. This was the first time where I I was like, oh my god, these Quillbore are doing horrifying things to the land and the people in it. Like it was the first time I actually felt like Quillbores were a threat, which I thought it was really compelling, and I like that. I'm like, oh wow, Quillbores are bad actually. Crazy.
Yeah, no, it was great, and I love the way they decide to end the little subzone at the start. Instead of heading down the path, Cataclysm was trying to like remove some of like the tedium from stuff, and sometimes it's a problem. Like I mentioned earlier that the Dun Morrow, the loss of the like the trudge through the snow up to Keranos, and replacement with just like you just take a flying machine, was really lame, and I felt like it removed a lot of the flavor from the zone. Mulgore did sort of the same thing, where you take the thing, where you take a little short transport that takes you to the edge to the main Bloodhoof village. But it does it so much better, though. You climb to the top of a great plateau that looks up, and the game like encourages you to look out on the world, on Mulgore. See this beautiful plain rolling hills from this great vantage point that you never got in Classic WoW. You never got this kind of vantage of looking out on Mulgore from above. That really is just such a striking visual.
And especially because you pan that way, but then you turn to the right and you see the black scar of the Quillbore. Yeah. From above, you're seeing like you're like almost like cool. It objectifies the experience. Like, oh wow, so this is what we're fighting for. This is the thing that it's like corrupting. I don't know. I thought it was just
awesome.
It brought a tear to my eyes, honestly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The vantage point is also better than the classic Mulgore, just because it's put you on a level where you can actually see Thunder Bluff a lot better. And we didn't really talk about Thunder Bluff
we completely forgot to talk about Thunder Bluff.
But it's a really cool designed city. It's basically a city of like different tents and very Tauren like constructions on a bunch of different plateaus, like 4 different plateaus that has two different little elevators that take you up and down. It's really gorgeous, beautiful, very Tauren. But in this vantage point, you get a much better look at it because it's up so high in the sky. When you're walking down the path in Classic, you have to look up and you're just seeing the side of the plateau. You're not seeing the actual city. But in this case, you can see it, which I think is nice. Whoopsies, we forgot to talk about the city, guys.
I did, yeah.
The city is... Yeah, I should have talked about that. Yeah, there's a big... The city definitely feels fairly integrated into the zone, into the last bits of the zone. It almost feels like it's just part of the zone, honestly, even though it is separated from the rest of it by these like high cliffs and these really, really cool like wooden elevators, which I do like that they provide. The tauren are not like... There's also actually a little deal I do like that sort of contradicts some of like the noble savage doing traditional thing stuff, which is a problem with the trolls sometimes. You see them using technology. They have like stuff that they have built themselves. They use guns instead of bows. Like the tauren are actually clearly more technologically advanced than they initially appear to be, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, they're mostly just interested in technology. They don't lack of understanding of technology.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and there's no rejection of technology like there is within the Night Elves,
Yes,
that is interesting. Yeah,
that was a lot of ways are like extremely xenophobic and isolationist, and compared to the tauren, who have a much more open approach to things. But it's interesting because you'll see them.
Sorry. No, it's just that they also have that same like, this is our home, this is our way of life kind of way, but they're a lot more isolationist, which makes sense since they are literally super racist towards trolls, which they evolved from.
Yes, and this is sort of an aside, it's not really quite about the zone, but like I was playing a druid, and druids have their own very specific relationship to the world. You only be in the original classic WoW, you could only be a druid if you were a tauren or if you were a night elf, and they have this like shared zone, and when you go there, like when you hit level 10 and like to get your like different transforming animal form, and you go there and you find like the night elves there just feel like, I don't know, it's interesting being tauren there and talking to the night elves and feeling like they have a very different approach to druidism and nature, like preservation and those sorts of things. Despite nominally working towards the same goals, it's clear that the tauren just understand these things in very different ways, and I think probably more healthy ways than the night elves do.
I think the Night Elves are just presented as a lot more violent than Tauren
that is
are.
True.
Like the way you're introduced to Night Elves in Warcraft 3 is the orcs are cutting down their trees, and the Night Elves come and try and wipe out like the entire settlement. No questions asked, nothing. They're ready to kill everyone. Whereas the Tauren have the exact opposite approach when they meet the Horde and Thrall.
But that was just to the side. But I think it's an interesting quality of the tauren and their relationship to the land versus other people's supposedly beneficial relationship to the land. But yes, Thunderbluff is a beautiful city. I love the elevators. I love the different tiers of the cities. He's very three-dimensional in the same way Orgrimmar is, but it's way easier to navigate. It's way prettier than Orgrimmar.
I hate Orgrimmar.
I also like how sorry, I wanted to like add on to that I thought just a second. I like how Cairn, Bloodhoof, and later Bane in the second version of the zone. Cairn gets killed off screen in a story. The main leader of the Tauren gets killed off screen in a story in a very important thing that is just not in the game proper, and that makes me so mad. But as I was saying,
at least it's in a cool way, unlike how they killed Vol'jin. Mad about it.
Fair. I sometimes wish that could have been incorporated into the Callison version, but whatever. He's more the leader of the Tauren, the High Chieftain, is significantly closer to the rest of the people there, which I think is meant to like reflect the society the Tauren have, where it is a less centralized society. The leader is a person that is simply the leader is simply a person that everyone respects and likes, and that is the most important thing.
He's just a guy.
Yeah, in the original classic version of the zone, Bane is just sitting there in the middle of the town, like the son of the king, of the chieftain, definitely not a king, chieftain, who's just there. He's like, he gives you quests. He just talks to you. He's like, yo, what's up? I'm here. You're a friend. Let's hang out.
And it feels notable compared to like Magni and Anduin and Thrall's throne rooms they have going on, which are more isolated, more protected, more that elevate the ruler above the common man. Whereas that's just not the case with Cairn. That's just not how Cairn is presented. That's just not how Tauren do things, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and speaking to this change, we have Cairn here, Bane instead of Cairn, in the new zone. There is very, very few actual changes to Cataclysm Mulgore. Besides the beginning thing, was a massive change. The rest of the zone is almost exactly the same, but like just way faster because Cataclysm's like better loot drop system and the like just makes a much more
But here's the thing, right?
Experience. But there are a couple changes which I do want to mention.
Okay, sure.
First of all, is the Grim Totem. I think you like the Grim Totem more than I do, so we should talk about them.
Sure. I really like the Grim Totem as like an enemy. I really wish Magatha Grim Totem had properly gotten a chance to be a big villain, but that is just my opinion there. I like the replacement of the Venture Company because I think the Venture Company is just not a particularly interesting villain.
Can you explain what the Grim Totem are first?
The Grim Totem are another tribe of tauren that have been present in the game since the beginning. They are usually like they usually are like have black fur. They tend to be. They have the seemingly similar tribal structures to the Bloodhoof, the main good guy tauren, but they're more violent. They're isolated. They're significantly xenophobic. They believe that the tauren are the true masters of the land and should drive the rest out of them, which is an interesting contrast with the good guy tauren, which do not support this. And I like how they are. And I like how they provided a sense of a tauren that is not a monolith. They provide a way of life that is different from the rest of the tauren, but still connected to it in a really interesting way. And I kind of wish that we could have been introduced to them into the original zone a little more.
We do get them in Thunderbluff. You get a quest from Magatha to go to Ragefire Chasm, in Orgrimmar, the Orgrimmar dungeon. And throughout Classic WoW, you do interact with them, and like Magatha is always like a weird shadowy figure, the leader of the Grim Totem, and she has these ideas about how to live, and you are getting quests from her, and so she is integrated into the world, just like definitely a slower burn sort of thing.
It's just that the big thing that her scheme lead up to, which was when she poisoned Karen Bloodhoof and effectively had him killed through Garrosh Hellscream, the new war chief of the Horde, and use that as a pretext to assume control of Thunderbluff and the Torin. That's a very cool plotline that unfortunately is only in a book and nowhere else, and I'm still a little upset about that.
Yeah,
I wish that this was in the game because it's such a cool idea for a story, and it's the kind of thing that could easily be told in WoW, but it is what it is, and they chose to put this in the book. And despite the fact that they didn't do this, I still really like what they do in Cataclysm here, even with the few changes they made. I still really like the integration of the Grim Totem into there because it provides a villain. It provides a more clear villain that is more connected to the Tauren. It is a villain from within, because all of the other villainous stuff in the original one, which fits with the story they were trying to tell with the original Mulgore, are all threats from without. The Grim Totem are Tauren. The Grim Totem are fellow people who are who have a different and evil view on life and wish and again, that's the big thing. They're not these are Tauren, but these are Tauren, but they're actually evil. They are despoilers. They're not despoilers. They're xenophobic reactionaries. They're xenophobic evil bastard, evil
they're
ambitious bastards. Yeah, they're xenophobic evil nationalist bastards, but they're not. But they're not exploiters in that way. They still have shaman. They still have the same tribal structure that the Tauren do, and I think that's cool.
And you get the sense from just knowing about the Grim Totem, and then when you play through the new Orc starting zone, that Garrosh and Magatha have very similar points of views, but for their own people.
Yeah, that is true. That is very cool.
Yes. I really like the place with the most adventure coming with the Magatha, with Magatha's Grim Totem Tauren, and to have the Civil War being a thing, and then the end of the zone is I really like the end of the zone. It's very different than the end of the zone last time.
Yeah. Instead of going out and killing a great Kodo beast and determining that you were an adult, which I like. Again, I like the ending of the original zone. I think it's good.
But this is better.
But this is better. You go out to the main Grim Totem camp to Grim Totem place in Mulgore and find the leader who has been performing these attacks and who has been taking control of realms.
He's Magatha's son.
Magatha,
right?
he might be. Magatha has a lot of children.
Yeah, he's one of his.
Yeah, and you find him. You find him. You start to fight him, and then Bane Bloodhoof shows up. You have a little cinematic fight between the chieftain of the Tauren and this Grim Toto and this Grim Toto invader dude, and they have like a cool fight. You take down some assassins that attack Bane, and he kills the man after some cool one-liner stuff that is said. And it's a really cool. I like it as a little capstone to the zone that really establishes like this is what because of the cataclysm, because of the way things are going, this is how the Tauren are forced to now interact with the world. And now it's like the world can be a violent and terrible place, but we can still have the strength to fight against that. And I think that's cool. I think that works with them moving into the wider world here. I don't know if this is the most coherent set of thoughts on it. I just think it's a more action-packed and enjoyable climax. The same way that the Dun Morrow, the best part of Cataclysm Dun Morrow is the finale. It's the same sort of vibe there, but
Cataclysm was definitely trying to give itself like actual endings to zones, whereas Classic WoW didn't always care about that.
Yeah. And to go on that, like I think it just does a really good job of like introducing this element of civil war, this way of like how no way of living, no way of like having a culture, no way of like building a society is free from a civil war as a concept, right? There are always these ideas. Like war pre-Cataclysm is much focused on this like Horde versus Alliance. You have these like certain set of monolithic ideas versus another certain set of monolithic ideas, and they clash. But like Cataclysm says, that's what the most interesting part of Cataclysm as an idea to me is it says, no, take a step back. There's not a monolith here. You can't find monoliths. There's a shattering. There's a sundering through the world, through any individual society itself, and of course all of the cultures, all of these people, but both from individual people to small groups to large groups to the entirety of the Horde and Alliance are cracked entities. And I really like that as a way of introducing that idea in this zone.
Yeah, and just, I mean, in Cataclysm, the new leader, of course, like Varian got put in during, what was it, Wrath, right?
Yes, Wrath.
Yes.
Yeah, Wrath, but and he was kind of the destabilizing influence within the Alliance, and Jaina was the stabilizing. But then we still had Thrall on the Horde side, which kept the peace relatively in check. And then in Cataclysm, we have Garrosh and Varian, both very warlike people, which goes into the themes of Cataclysm, the breaking of the world, the breaking of like this fragile peace that's existed for a little bit.
I think that breaking of that fabric of peace just works so well with what Mulgore as a zone, as a thematic idea is, and how it changed in Cataclysm. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you would like to? We think we need to discuss here about Mulgore? Because I think we covered pretty much all of it.
Oh, we were pretty thorough. I would love to just talk about our favorites and least favorite parts of the zones.
All right.
Yep.
What was your least favorite part of Classic Mulgore?
I will start. And it was the big venture company cave, and that fact that it's like it's just this cool, great place. That obviously there's so many cool ideas, and like they clearly built it because they had an idea there, and they just didn't go through with it, and that just makes me sad and it frustrates me because I think Classic Mulgore could have been actually one of the best zones in all of Classic if they had really gone harder with this, and I just think that part of it holds it back so much.
Yeah, the zone feels rushed in a way that is just unfortunate.
Eowyn? I'll go next. Okay. So my least favorite part of Classic Mulgore is so this is kind of shallow, but I really, really hate the tauren female designs. I think they're ugly. They're trying to be sexy, and it just comes off as weird and terrible. And like one of the reasons I never played Classic Mulgore as a little kid was because I liked playing girls because I was a little girl and I wanted to play girls, and I was like, I don't want to be an ugly cow lady. That's weird. So I just never played it. And like honestly, that's my least favorite part of Classic Mulgore is that the female tauren designs are so hideous.
All right, I think I guess. Well, thank you for letting me to pick the obvious one. My least favorite thing about Classic Mulgore is the pacing is awful. The pacing is so bad. It is even worse than the pacing in Dun Morrow, which is in Classic Dun Morrow, which is impressive because that is also quite bad. And it just drags the zone down around it. It makes the zone that should be amazing just really not. By like just the interminable amounts of things you having to return to the same quest NPC a whole bunch of time before going back out into the same hilly, lovely but like a little monotonous plains and killing the same kinds of lions and tigers and not tigers. Cougars and wolves and vultures. Oh my!
Yeah,
and it's just not fun.
And just speaking of that, let's like for reference, the zone is almost 10 hours long, and about 7.5 to 8 of those hours are just killing animals.
So many animals.
Bad. All right. What was your favorite thing about classic Mulgore?
My favorite thing was, I think it's just gotta be, honestly, it was the moment you like. I think it is. I think it was the story about the guy and his wolf companion that just really moved me. Also, just gonna give an honorable mention to like when you like walk to Bloodhood Village and I saw the light streaming over the sides. I'm like, wow, this is a really beautiful game.
My favorite part was actually the dwarf part. I think it was a really good way to integrate the conflict with the Alliance, at least one part of it, and it really well established who the dwarves are and what they want and like part of like how they are culturally, and I thought that was really good.
All right. I think my favorite part of classic Mulgore is just the way you feel like you're part of a community. The way in which your character, like as you go through the trials and become an adult, feels like you're part of a real like group of people. Like you feel you're not just an MMO adventurer, murder hobo doing murder hobo things. You are like a person. You are a person becoming an adult and a warrior who is ready to go out into the wide world. And I love that tonal thing. I love the way that it works for Mulgore. All right.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite thing about Cataclysm Mulgore?
My least favorite thing about Cataclysm Mulgore, it was probably the fact that I feel like they could have integrated the Grim Tone a little bit more strongly into the zone. Like, it's definitely there and definitely powerful, but I feel like if we'd spent more time really talking about the division with the Tauren, maybe even like have a Grim Toten who's in Bloodhood Village, you get quests from, and then betrays you, something like that, just to like get the feeling into it. I feel like they a little bit just sort of that, they're now in the place where the venture company used to be, and that's fine. And I think that was a little frustrating to me.
I think my least favorite part is just the harpy stuff. In general, harpies aren't a well thought out and explored enemy in WoW, Classic, or Cataclysm era. It's the same exact quest you have in Classic Mulgore to gather their feathers for a headpiece for this guy's brother, and I'm just like I really wish. Like there's something you could do there that would tell me literally anything about the harpies besides that they're bird women. And I just they didn't do anything with it, and I was like, lame.
I think my least favorite thing about Cataclysm Mulgore is probably that's a tough one. I think my least favorite thing about Cataclysm Mulgore is just probably the fact that they didn't use it as an opportunity. That they had an opportunity to tell the story of like of Magatha Grim Totem and Karen Bloodhoof and have that be like a very like interesting starting experience that could have done some like narrative things, and they instead put that in a book that like a lot of people just haven't read, and so a lot of people just like see that Karen's gone and now Bane's here and like what okay, and that's just the way it is, and there's no storytelling in game about it, and there easily could have been, and they chose not to do that, and that has me a little disappointed.
Very much.
Yeah.
All right.
All relegated to the little intro blurb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite part. I'm just gonna. I mean, my favorite part of the Cataclysm Mulgore. I mean, I want to just say the entirety of Red Cloud Mesa. It's an amazing story.
Good.
But I'm gonna specifically narrow it down to just the last part where you like look over the land and see on one side the beautiful like rolling Mulgore plains, and then the scar on the other side. Just like that was just so good. That's just fantastic. I have no words. Just great.
My favorite part was the final battle with Bane Bloodhoof and the Grim Totem Torin man. I just think it's a big bang to end a good zone on, and I was very happy with it. Also, the dialogue is just really funny during the battle. Like literally, not Karen. Bane shows up to fight him, and then the guy is like, "Oh, Bane, you're here," and then he says, "Get him!" And two guys jump out of the shadows to try and kill Bane, which of course doesn't work. And then eventually he like the guy is defeated, and he's sitting on the ground like, "Oh, this isn't over." And then Bane says, "It is for you," and kills him.
It's great.
So,
I love
So good.
It's really good.
It's cheesy, but like in a good way.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I'm actually gonna pull us back to Red Cloud Mesa for my favorite part of Cataclysm Mulgore, and I'm gonna say the funeral. We didn't really mention this in our original talk about here, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to talk about it here. My favorite, because at the end, after you've done all the stuff and killed the Quillboar chieftain, and presumably dealt with the problem, and presumably now the Quillboar invasion forces dealt with and will be cleaned up off screen because they do not want to implement phasing like that. You go back, and the woman whose murder sparked off this whole zone is given a funeral, in which her body is to be returned in which her spirit is to return to the Earth Mother, her body is to return to the Earth. Everything, and the sun, eternal sun guides it. Just like a lot of like just regular Torin spirituality things. But I'm very happy that the game decided to take a second after that after that big action-packed prologue to do a funeral, to let you just still get that same glimpse of culture of the Tauren, to get you see like a sense of who these people are, what this community means to them, what death means to them.
Yeah, it feels like really unlike how a lot of Cataclysm has been working so far, at least in the zones. Like, because Cataclysm likes to go wham, bam, bam. All right, let's go, move on. It doesn't give you a lot of time to sit and contemplate, and this does.
Yeah, Mulgore is good. Like Cataclysm Mulgore is really good.
Yeah, it's, I think, my favorite zone so far, besides maybe Classic Durotar.
Classic Durotar is really good. That's the problem. It's definitely... I definitely think it has the highest swing in terms of like... And it's the only one with a positive swing so far, and it's a huge swing. Because I think... Yeah, let's go back to it. Would you recommend Classic... so Mulgore, Classic or and Cataclysm, would you recommend these zones to a new player starting off?
I would recommend either of them very strongly.
Interesting.
I'd say, honestly, I literally would not play through Classic Mulgore by myself. Like, I like, if I did, I would put like a show on while I played, just because the quests are really tedious. Like, honestly, I don't recommend Classic Mulgore, especially, like, I would say play through Red Cloud Mesa and then move on. Because Red Cloud Mesa is good in Classic. And then you can play and then play Cataclysm Mulgore, because it like the Red Cloud Mesa thing is what's the most sequely. And then you can play through the rest of the zone, which is mostly unchanged, but with better like mechanics and pacing, and still get like all of that good stuff out of the zone.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to play Classic WoW, I would not recommend playing a Tauren unless you want to play a Horde Druid specifically. I think there's interesting stuff going on here. I think if you aren't specifically interested in either Tauren lore, playing a Horde Druid, just do Durotar. It's a better zone. It is. I fully expect that it will be the worst of the Horde starting zones by a pretty wide margin of the Classic ones. For Cataclysm though, if you want to start in a Cataclysm zone and not do like Exile's Reach, a Tauren is quite possibly the best choice you could make of anyone, with only a Troll so far matching it. The flavor is so good. The zone is so good. It's so well paced. It is so well put together. And while keeping a lot of it the same is sometimes an issue, glances meaningfully at Elwyn Forest literally losing anything that was remotely good about the zone by just not changing any of it, except for the beginning, which was like Red Cloud Mesa but garbage.
Yeah.
This time, like having the same flavor and the same stuff going on is a positive. It makes the zone flow better. It makes the zone still flow well. It lets you still get like that insight into the tauren. It's good. It's a really good zone. So here's the question: Classic Durotar. I think we all agree. Cataclysm Mulgore beats Cataclysm Durotar, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so does it beat Classic Mulgore? This is tough to me. Both of those zones are really good.
Wait,
Cataclysm
sorry.
Mulgore versus
Well,
Cataclysm Mulgore versus Classic Durotar.
I still vote for Classic Durotar just because
I do too.
Like I have such attachment to that zone, and just like the Jaina Thrall stuff is very dear and near to my heart. I'm a big Warcraft 3 fan again. I still prefer Classic Durotar.
Mm-hmm.
I think I put them on basically the same level, honestly.
They're both really good.
They're very fun.
This is going to be a problem with our tier list because Cataclysm Mulgore is like
easily A tier. Easily. It means put it in great. It goes in second tier.
Anyway,
yeah. I believe that's it for now. What is our so do you know what our next zone is?
It's gonna be Teldrassil.
Yes.
We know the alphabet, how it works.
Probably. Second, our penultimate starting zone.
We're almost done with those. Damn.
Night Elf time! I'm so excited! I love Night Elves.
We talked a lot of shit about Night Elves, but
this zone is the one I remember being my favorite zone growing up. So we'll see how it is coming back to it.
Yeah,
I am really excited.
I played a lot of Night Elves, and I love this zone. Or at least I remember loving it. We'll see.
I think we were sufficiently wowed by zones today, and I think that's awesome.
Hell yeah.
I agree. All right. I've been Ari.
Torin.
Eowyn.
And we'll see you at another episode, Wowed by Zones.